Hello beautiful people, welcome to another video. This is kind of probably random and out of the blue, especially since it's been over a year since I last traveled, but I wanted to share this video as a way for people to have a guide on how to travel based on my own experience. I'm definitely not an expert, but I have had at least 2 separate trips that were about a month each. And so I just wanted to share, right? So back in October of 2023, I began my travels from the East Coast of the US to the West Coast. And it was a beautiful journey and I learned a lot. I definitely don't want anyone to do what I did. But I left with very little planning, very little plans at all. My goal was to travel full time. At the time, I was really into van lifers and car lifers and just people who travel full time for a living. And I had no real plan of if I wanted to settle down at any point, if I wanted to be any one place. I just wanted to drive and figure it out as I got there, right? So, I will say though that I was very much led by my intuition. Everything I do is led by my intuition. So every stop I made, every time I decided to get up and keep moving, that was my intuition. So I do want to share that as a first thing, especially if you're traveling by yourself. Always trust your guts, always trust your instincts, and just make sure you're never in a situation where you don't want to be, right? So some of the preparation I did do, I had quit my job a month in advance, so there was plenty of time for my workplace to find a replacement. This was going to happen anyway. It wasn't the reason I started traveling. A lot of endings were happening around that time, like my lease, and it just felt like it was time to move on. So I quit my job, although for anyone planning to travel short term, I would definitely just recommend doing a vacation or PTO or something like that. Having something to come back to would be really nice. But again, my plan at the time was to just travel full time and live on the road and, go to all the landmarks and, enjoy. And I didn't really do that. The first place I stopped was in Virginia, and the particular campsite I went to was very beautiful. I have plenty of videos and pictures on my phone, and more so than anything, I have the memories, and it was really beautiful. Unfortunately, I really only stayed there for maybe a few days. There was no Wi-Fi, which is to be expected. It was the middle of nature, but at the time I thought I was going to be a YouTuber. I do have 3 channels right now that I think I am gonna try posting a video to each one, but at the time I thought it was gonna be my full-time career, right? But it wasn't, and quickly, I just figured out it wasn't going to be a comfortable place for me to stay. It was very cold, freezing. I didn't really have any thing for that. I bought a tent and it was nice. It was cozy. It was a cool little camping experience, but it was something I was not prepared for. Of course, most people who go out to live on the road have that gear and know what to do with it, and I was just flying by the seat of my pants. But let's just go into tips. I don't want to go fully into my story, but some aspects of the tips I have do come from my story. So mainly planning ahead, making sure you have everything you need for where you plan on going. Even if you plan on just driving down the open road, just having an idea of where each stop is that you need to make, like gas stations, food, rest stops, things like that. I really was just going day by day, seeing what the next closest thing was. But I really quickly ran out of money. So that's the other part. Make sure you are somewhat financially endowed or have the opportunity or ability to earn money while you're on the road. So whether you are a freelancer or I did Instacarts, not on my first journey, but my second journey, along the East Coast all the way to Washington and back to Arizona, that was completely funded by Instacart. So definitely is an option. But make sure you have a way of making money, or make sure you have someone or people in general that are able to support you along the way. I had a handful of friends that were able to send me money along the way, which I'm really entirely grateful for. I made sure I paid them back like as soon as I could, but it was I couldn't have gotten as far as I did without the help that I did and the support that I did. My journey was very much a journey of faith. In so many ways. It felt like a journey that needed to happen. But for someone who is traveling short term or just doing it to get away for like a weekend or something, definitely have all the materials you need. Make sure if you're using a car or any vehicle of any type, make sure you've gotten your maintenance done. Get your oil change, get your tires checked, your brakes checked, all of the things, especially if you do plan on being on the road full time or for a longer period of time. You want to make sure that the thing that you're using to travel is in tip-top shape so you don't have to deal with things breaking down on you. The other part is with that is making sure you have like roadside assistance type things, so like services like your insurance or AAA, OnStar, whatever you may have. And in addition to that, I had 2 devices that were really useful to me. I had a NoCo jump starter charger. It was a NoCo Pro. You can find it on Amazon, and it has like 2 jumper cables on the end, and it's literally just a battery. So I charged that up. I didn't have to use it at all in my travels, but it was very helpful knowing I had it in case my car ever did break down. And then I also had like this tire inflator from Amazon as well. It was also like a flashlight. I never used it as a flashlight, but it's basically a tire inflator. So that was super helpful. I use that all the time because my tires, always needed to be perked up, and I didn't always want to go to a gas station to do that. It is a little loud, but it was really helpful to not have to be like anywhere close to facilities to have that to do, right? If you are traveling with a pet, which my second journey included my cat Teddy, who I adopted here in Arizona, definitely make sure you have the facilities for them as well. So if it's a cat, maybe a litter box somewhere in your vehicle, or training them to use a leash or things like that, having like a carrier to have them in. Teddy personally hates anything enclosed. When I did travel with him the second time, he hid under my car my driver's seat. That's his spot the entire time. And then I had like a cat bed for him and a litter box behind my passenger seat that he used. Again, I was living in my car, so this wasn't a problem for me. Just had to empty it out more frequently than you would in like a house maybe. So yeah, having a financial like nest egg or something to support you along the way, having a plan, especially if you're traveling to places that are in the middle of nowhere, making sure you have an idea of where all the facilities are that you would need. So again, gas station, rest stops. I personally use the Love's gas stations / truck stops as my places to rest all along my journey from the East Coast. So basically each of my stops were according to that. Listening to your intuition is really important. I had many times where I was in somewhere very random and I just didn't feel safe, and so I listened to my intuition and I got up and I moved. There were also a lot of times where I was kind of woken up very early in the morning at times, and it was like, let's just say my first trip didn't have a lot of rest in it. But again, that was its own journey in and of itself. That was its own like spiritual journey and just needing to trust myself, and I'm really glad I did. Let's see if there's anything else. Making sure you have everything, making sure you have food. I made the mistake of packing way too much food. So I went on like a Walmart haul before I traveled, and I had this ginormous tote that filled up the entire back seat that had all these dry goods, and it was like terrible because I didn't touch it. I ended up donating everything to a food bank. I think I used like a handful of things, and I had like these small appliances that worked on my car power. And I had a battery pack as well, which goes in terms of my materials you might need. I used it to charge my phone. I used it to actually like use small appliances like a little rice cooker. I personally used the Dash brand. I love their appliances. They're really cute and handy. So I had their little mini rice cooker. I think I had the little mini like pancake maker as well, which you could use for eggs and stuff. I also had like a portable propane stove that I used, but having all those dry goods really did not motivate me as I thought it would to like cook anything, because it took like resources to do that. So I think I really kind of ate out. Not a lot because I didn't have money, but at the same time, it was definitely more, I did not need as much food as I thought I did. If you're doing it for a weekend, definitely shop as you go. It definitely wasn't the most nutritious food. I had cup of noodles in that pack of thing of food, and I probably used all the cup of noodles before I used anything else. It was so much easier just to boil hot water for that rather than anything else. So just have an idea of what you're gonna eat, and if you're going to be stopping for food, making sure you have some kind of a budget, some kind of a plan. Again, I had no plan. I was just flying by the seat of my pants, but I made it to where I needed to be. And then the second travel I did, like I said, I used Instacart, so that was really helpful for me, albeit more painful, because I had to go specifically by Instacart places to like making sure that I traveled to places that did Instacart, and more specifically to like the bigger stores that would get orders. So there were a lot of times where I got to places that were a little more uncomfortable and I had to wait for an order before I could move on. Definitely not a smart way to do it, but if this is something you insist on doing, that you just need to get out, that is a helpful way. Of course, with DoorDash, Uber Eats, Instacart, those are things you should have settled before you leave. Make sure you get approved, make sure you have all your documentation uploaded, because it's not necessarily something you're going to be able to get up and running while you're on the road. Especially like you're going to need a current insurance for a state, and at least with Instacart, all the I could earn money across multiple states, but all my information and my like licenses to do things were based on New Jersey laws. So like alcohol, for example, it was based specifically on whether I was approved in New Jersey, even though I was like across state lines. So that's something to keep in mind. I was also at a point where I could shop for multiple orders because of the size of my vehicle, so that was really helpful for me to get bigger orders, but I probably didn't get to enjoy the beauty of traveling as much with my second journey because I had to depend on Instacart along the way and friends. So that's very important to keep in mind if you are someone who's lower on funds like I was. I'm not saying like that's the way to go. I'm saying it's possible to travel and, you know, go step by step, day by day, but it's definitely not easy, and you definitely need a support system. And definitely document, like, even if you don't plan on being on YouTube or sharing it everywhere, there are so many pictures and videos I took, not of myself, more so of the landscapes that I traveled through, and every once in a while I'll go through and like scroll through all my videos, scroll through all my pictures, and I just have this wave of nostalgia because those drives definitely, like, I felt so free and so excited and so just like unburdened, and it was beautiful, it was magical. I don't regret it at all. I kind of wish I had documented myself a little bit more. I think I had taken one video, maybe when I was in New Mexico or I know for a fact I took more videos at the first point in my journey, like when I was in like Pennsylvania, Virginia. I definitely took a lot of videos for YouTube, but I don't think I have those videos. Like, I think they're on my channel. But I don't know if I uploaded all of them, right? And I really wish I had kept those, especially at that time. You know, I think I had less storage on my phone than I do now, so I deleted a lot of things. So I really wish I had invested in the space to document a lot more things and like done a lot more to document. Definitely don't be like, I feel like being on YouTube as like a professional, like I just make videos, but like the people who have the cinematic videos, I don't think people realize just how much effort goes into those videos, because you have to have either multiple cameras, multiple angles, you know, leaving my tripod somewhere and like walking away from my phone or my camera isn't something I'm particularly comfortable with. Good kudos to those people who are able to do it, to get those shots of them like walking around and atmosphere and like the storytelling. I've watched so many videos on it, but it's not something I'm personally comfortable with. I just like, especially if I'm filming by myself, I don't really like the idea of just leaving my property like 10-20 feet away from me while I like try to I don't know, maybe in the future I will, but yeah, I do wish I documented more, because, you know, the way I remember things, definitely I think it's still fresh in my mind that I can, but, you know, I don't necessarily remember everything that happened until maybe like context clues or something pops up and I remember. So I feel like it would just be so much easier to remember that time in my life if I had like kept a journal more. I do have a journal from during that time, but I'm not like an avid journal reader or writer where I will write every single thing that's happening. I'll just write like the one major thing that's on my mind at the time. So there isn't much context, and this might seem like a silly thing, but again, documenting, because when you're back, you know, in a time of your life where maybe things are better or things are different, you kind of want to look back on that and be able to see your story through your own eyes. Every time I look at my like clips of like the Oregon coast and things, like I feel so happy that I took those videos, and you know, happy to have been there. But another thing I will say, make sure you stop and smell the roses. You know, it's about the journey, of course, it's about getting there, but it's about like enjoying each step of the way. There were places I did stop and I really enjoyed those places, but I didn't stop on like key parts. Like in San Francisco, I did stop by the Golden Gate Bridge, so I'm happy I did that, on one of the beaches, but I didn't stop along the Oregon coast. I just kind of took video as I was driving through. There were times I could have stopped, especially because the speed limit going from California into Oregon is so freaking slow, and I don't know, it just made me nervous to like pull off on the side of the road and just walk around. I wish I did do it. I don't know, I just felt scared in a way. So that is definitely something that's like above all, I think, just documenting and taking time to stop, even if you don't share it with anyone, just having it for yourself is so important. To this day, like I still look back on my videos, and I plan on making that trip again actually when I move to Washington permanently, but part of me is like, oh my god, I wish I had stopped so much more, you know. It's as simple as pulling off the side of the road. A lot of the places I went were like back roads though, so you know, even if there was a ton of people behind me, it wasn't exactly places where I could pull off. It was like cliffside kind of things, and you know, it wasn't necessarily space to do that. I'm rambling, but those are some of my tips on how to get up and go and do a road trip. Again, definitely be more prepared than I was. This wasn't like a family affair. This wasn't something I was doing with a friend. It was something I did by myself. partially because I just knew I needed to leave the East Coast. I knew that I was in a transitionary point in my life where I needed to like be somewhere else. Just as the next move I make, that feels very necessary for me. I don't know, I guess I'm just like tuned into my life transitions in that way. But for anyone wanting to just travel for a short term, like a week or whatever, just make sure you have enough to be comfortable. I'm never going to be that person that's like, oh, you need to save thousands of dollars before you make that trip. But having a few $100s is helpful. Also, gas. Don't underestimate the gas. I really wish I had kind of like planned that out a bit. Also recognizing that gas prices are different in every state. So getting into states where gas was cheaper was really nice. But you know, my gas tank on maximum fuel efficiency is like 400 miles per gallon. For 100 miles, like in total for a full tank of gas. But some states, I don't know why, but some states, like if I filled up my gas tank, it would only go to like 350 or 360 or even 300. So just recognizing even the way your car works, and the way that fuel works, I don't know why that is. Like I would go to like 2 different gas stations in Oregon, and one would fill my tank to 400 miles and the other would fill my tank to like 360. And I don't know, I didn't even know my car could go to 400 until I saw the like my mileage. On my car I have like the little screen, and I kept it on my fuel mileage just so I knew like about what point I should stop to fill. So that was helpful. Of course, having reliable directions and like GPS. I didn't use my car GPS, I just used like Apple Maps and Google Maps. But yeah, just making sure you have like, also making sure you have emergency situation plans as well. So I talked about making sure you have like roadside assistance things and services, but also like if you have a way to share your location with someone that you love and trust so they know where you are, that is really helpful. That way if you do get stranded, you have a way to like say, hey, this is where I am. Emergency services, I know Apple now has a feature where if you have no signal you can like text for roadside assistance. I haven't had to use it, but that's also a helpful feature to look into for like planning for when you don't have any signal at all. That definitely happened a few times. Again, because I was kind of in a space where I was just traveling open road, it wasn't that big of a deal, especially if it was like miles until I would get to the next point anyway. But if you're someone who isn't kind of okay with getting lost, definitely plan ahead. Either buy like a map of the state that you're traveling to. You can stop at like the tourist areas, the tourist stops or the rest stops that they have in each state, like along the highway, and get one. Or, you know, download it beforehand if you know you're gonna be in like, I don't know, the outlands, like camping in some very like off-grid places. Make sure you get the coordinates, get the map of the land, things like that, just so you aren't caught off guard. There were some navigational apps. So I said I use Google Maps and Apple Maps. There are other apps which of course escape me now. It wasn't Gaia. There were like, it's gonna bother me now. I had like downloaded all these apps before I left, like the national parks stuff. I never did end up getting a pass, so I never was able to use it. Let me see if I can find it really quick for you guys. This is all Apple apps, so I'm sorry if you're an Android user. But there was one other one that was really helpful, and I want to make sure I find it. Gaia. Okay, so that was what was coming up, and I was thinking of like the Gaia app with like the spiritual stuff, but Gaia GPS, hopefully you can see it on there. Gaia GPS, I didn't use it too much, but it definitely had a lot of potential, and I did save like offline maps on it in case I did find myself in, you know, lesser known places. That one was really helpful. That one, I believe, did have like notes from other people. I feel like there was another one that I used where like other people who stayed in places would tell you if it's good or not, or what's actually there, what resources are there, whether, you know, you should stay there. I really wish I could like kind of share for other people. Maybe some of the places I stayed were probably a little less like somewhere people would choose, but for example, in San Diego, when I went to San Diego, I used to live there like many years back, but it was very, I think, not as van life friendly as a lot of the older videos portrayed it to be. Probably for good reason. You know, I'm sure they got overran and saw a lot of people just kind of staying and camping and not really respecting the space. I've noticed that on my travels. Make sure you are picking up after yourself and you're more you remain aware and courteous to those who live in that place. A lot of like beautiful national places and like hidden gems have become closed off to tourists because people just do terrible things. They leave trash, they, you know, vandalize places. It's really like terrible when you think of how beautiful these natural areas are. To do that, to desecrate that place, is just disrespectful, not only to Mother Earth, but also to, again, inhabitants of those areas. But like, back to what I was saying. San Diego specifically wasn't as van life friendly, and they did have a lot of signs of saying like no overnight parking, things like that. However, it was, I think, busy enough of a place where like people would leave their cars by the beach, for example, and go other places. So I was able to blend in because I had a car and I had like blackout curtains and stuff. So, you know, I tried to minimize my movement and minimize like making it obvious that I was in my car. But yeah, definitely be very mindful of where you're staying. There was some place in California that, you know, I had been staying by 24-hour gyms a lot as well. And one of the gyms that was 24 hours was no longer 24 hours, even though it was listed as 24 hours. And so I was like woken up early, like 4 a.m. in the morning, like, hey, this is private property, you gotta move. I was like, okay, I'm so sorry. Thankfully they didn't ticket me or anything, but yeah, just be mindful of like the places that you are staying. Also, if you are kind of living in your car trying to figure out how to navigate that, let me know if you have any questions, because I did live in my car for October 2023 through June 2024, so not a full year, but several months. So I could definitely give some tips on, like, you know, besides actually doing a road trip, how to actually live in your vehicle and what you would need for that specifically. Let me know if you have any more questions. I would love to do an update or a part 2. And definitely look out for some videos. I do want to try to do like a collage of the videos I did take, like a compilation, either putting it into one massive video that's like hours long, or I don't know what I'll do. I have like a lot of different snippets. Some are like a few seconds long, some are a few minutes, some are like several minutes of just driving montage. So I'm gonna see over time. I am in school, I am doing schoolwork, and I have a full-time job, so I do want to try to see if I can put stuff together on my travel channel. I also have my channel Spiritually Nay, which is a spiritual channel, like tarot readings and things like that. And I have a new channel, Nay to ND, which I kind of want to make it into a lifestyle channel, specifically, kind of documenting my journey to continuing my education as I am right now, my journey to graduate school. I want to get approved first, but maybe just showing that journey. ND is naturopathic doctor, so my whole plan of moving to Seattle is based on that. So yeah, I do kind of want to, like, I just turned 25 yesterday, so I feel like in my quarter life crisis, I'm like, you know what? I think it's time to stop being afraid of being seen and perceived and just put myself out there. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.